In Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota. She's a member of the Judiciary Committee. And Amy, I'm sure you're watching these election results
well, I went
with great
to
interest.
all of those states, so
yeah.
it is, yes. I just think this is, when you look at these different candidates, very different candidates, but the one thing they had in common, Mika, was that they spoke and they had plans and hopes for people who are suffering because of Donald Trump. This was a rebuke of Donald Trump. He can build all these glorious ballrooms he wants. He can have beautiful, great Gatsby parties. He can build marble bathrooms. But what matters to people is when they look at their grocery bill and they see how much it costs for coffee or beef, when they see what happens when he is messing around and not doing anything about building more housing or doing something about child care or doing these crazy things every single day, pardoning George Santos or saying he's going to run a third term. He loves to dominate the news cycle every day, but what dominates people's lives is how much things cost. And that's what united our candidates across the country and is driving our agenda and their agenda now. And he can say whatever he wants the day after. He has made things worse for people since he came into the presidency.
So, Madam Senator, as you noted, big tent here, some moderates, New Jersey, Virginia, far more Democratic socialists winning mayor of New York City, all talking about affordability. The Republican rebuttal is, well, these are blue places. They're blue states. We know that's not quite true. But beyond that, Democrats showed real gains. Right, in gains like Mississippi and Pennsylvania and the like.
Switching 2 seats, red counties in Virginia. I just saw Congressman Crow last night, Arapahoe County. He has never had every single council flip, every single mayor's office flip. These are counties that were once bright red. So I'm sorry, but this was an across-the-board rebuke of people of different ages, different backgrounds, different states.
Yeah, and so on that point, the fact that this actually was far more broad-based than Republicans want to admit, what is that saying? What other issues do you feel, affordability perhaps top of the list, what other issues right now do you think really resonating with voters to come out and rebuke what they saw from President Trump over the last year?
Sure. They don't like the cost. 10% of the people that voted for Donald Trump voted for me in my state, so I'm well aware they were hoping he was going to do something about it, and he didn't. They don't like the corruption, where he's given a bunch of money to his crony friends and working things out for them and pardoning people he knows instead of looking out for them. And they don't like the chaos. When you're a senior trying to call in to the Social Security line, or you're a veteran that needs some help with the benefits, and they've fired a bunch of people, or they've gotten them to take early retirement, cost, corruption, chaos. That's what he has brought on America. And on Tuesday night, they said, no, enough, and you better change your ways. And as far as I can see, I'm not sure he's learned that in the last 2 days. And certainly the Republicans in Congress, who are still on their 7-week extended vacation, haven't learned it, or they would have been back the next day.
Yeah, it's incredible. We're in the middle of a shutdown. We're going to return to the election results in just a moment. But, Senator, while we have you, a majority of the Supreme Court seemed skeptical yesterday of President Trump's use of emergency powers to issue sweeping global tariffs in a case that carries broad economic and political implication. Yesterday's arguments came 1 week after the Senate voted to end the national emergency that Trump declared to impose tariffs on imports from Canada. That legislation isn't expected to go into effect because it needs to be approved by the House, which previously voted to block all legislation challenging Trump's tariffs until March of 2026. So, Senator, you led that bill to repeal the tariffs on Canada, along with Senators Tim Kaine of Virginia and Rand Paul of Kentucky. What did you make of yesterday's oral arguments before the High Court?
Well, I got to be in that courtroom, Mika, and it was, I guess, the big SCOTUS versus POTUS moment.
Yeah.
Along with the Treasury Secretary and the Commerce Secretary, they were also there, I guess, to show their support for their tariffs. I thought, first point, conservative justices, especially Justice Gorsuch, made it very clear that they believe it's Congress that has the power to assess these tariffs. He talked about the unique nature of these tariffs and how if you're going to start taking money out of taxpayers' pockets, you better follow the Constitution. In a very loud voice, I was in there. Secondly, you had judges like Justice Kagan and I would say Roberts and Amy Coney Barrett, who seemed quite skeptical of this idea that you would use a statute that doesn't even have the word tariff in it to create these broad, sweeping, worldwide tariffs. And I think it was Justice Roberts that actually made the point that this affects people in America, taxpayers. And in fact, he didn't say this, but I will, it's a $2,000 tax on every single American family, this tariff tax. And then just the third point is that if Congress had wanted to delegate stuff in this way, they would have done it. So it was actually quite fun to be there, quite fun to watch the faces of the cabinet officials while you listen to these conservative justices ask these probing questions. So maybe I can't predict what the court's going to do, but when I look at this thing is illegal, and they're going to side with the lower courts, and they're going to throw these tariffs out.
We'll be watching this. Democratic Senator Amy Klobuchar of Minnesota, always good to see you. Thank you.
Great to be on,
very
Mika.
much.
Thank
good
you.
to see you. So